Hi friends, welcome to my channel. My name is Kat and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 books so far of 2024. So we are midway through the year and let's take some time, let's reflect a little bit on my reading so far, how I've been thinking about it, and really like what I have been absolutely loving. So this was hard. This was really hard. When we are filming this, I've read I think about 140 books so far this year, and narrowing it down to 10 was incredibly hard. There were some that were immediate standouts that 100% had to be included. There was no question about it. They were top of the top, absolute incredible, beyond belief good books. And then there's some that are really good, but it was trying to distinguish between what makes one 5-star better than the other. And this is hard. This is something that I struggle with so much. I very rarely do favorites of the year because my favorites could be 30 books, and sometimes that's a little excessive, but that is what we're going to start doing from now on. So just getting down to 10 books, this was hard. And am I going to be able to do a top 10 at the end of the year? That is hard. But we have some great books to talk about. There's honestly some that I would consider now all-time favorites, some that are probably going to be in my favorite series of all time, some that I can guarantee I will never stop thinking about. So this has been enough rambling. Let's just actually get into these top 10 books. So just a little aside, I think all of these except for one have some kind of fantasy or sci-fi element in it. So there's one nonfiction, the rest are pretty much all sci-fi or fantasy adjacent, at least. So we're just really reminding myself what I love. So first one we're going to talk about is Dune. Dune, the classic beautiful sci-fi that is Dune. I, for some reason, put off reading this for the longest time. I have owned this copy for I think 4 years. I have wanted to read it ever since the movie came out, the updated movies, not the original, that was terrible. But I've wanted to read it for so long. I loved the world and I just really wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to get very deeply entrenched in it and learn everything. But this is one that is constantly referred to as one of the most dense and hard to get into sci-fis in the world. One of those books that people said it takes every bit of their brain power to understand. And I got scared. I got really scared, to be honest, to read this because I thought that I'd be getting into this slog that would be miserable and I'd have to make myself read 5 pages a day to try and get through it. And I could not have been more shocked by how truly perfect this book was. We're following the Atreides family as they become the stewards of this planet, Arrakis, and they get really entrenched in the world of this spice cultivation. And it's this spice, it's this element that basically empowers the world. It enables space voyaging, it enables all of these things, people to open their mind and experience new things. And when they're brought into this planet, they are very quickly entrenched in this very intense political battle, and they deal with betrayal, they deal with all of the different people who live on this planet. And this was just so good. So it did bring very similar plots to the movie, obviously, and it did bring basically just more information. If you are a fan of the movie, this will just tell you more. You will get more entrenched in it. You will learn more about the world, and that is what I wanted. I wanted to know everything, and I am so happy that I finally read this. I loved it. Truly fantastic book. The only thing that was kind of an issue for me is that every time I put it down, I didn't really want to pick it back up. So I would put it down, not pick it up for a few weeks. But then when I did, I'd read 300 pages at once. So it was just one that I kind of struggled a little bit to get through it. But once I did, truly amazing. Next, we have what's actually a very recent read for me, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. And this one is basically sci-fi horror about killer mermaids. And that is the best synopsis in a way that I could ever hope for. The best little tagline to bring you in. But we are following this world where 10 years previous, this sci-fi the sci-fi network basically started funding these voyages to try and be oh, we're gonna go find Bigfoot, let's go find mermaids. And they sent a voyage of scientists out onto the sea to kind of explore, see if they can find any deep sea creatures. And something happened where this entire expedition disappeared. There was leaked videos that basically showed monsters coming on board and ripping people apart, killing them, dragging them into the water. And it has been speculated for the last 10 years that this footage is fake. But we very quickly realized that it it is true. There were some monsters that came out from the sea and killed everyone. And we are following 10 years later. This sci-fi network decides to do another expedition to kind of be like, let's find the truth. Let's like actually reveal what happened. Let's tell everybody the truth. Let's see if there actually are mermaids. And it is a group of scientists who all go out on the sea and are, a lot of them just conducting like experiments, or like, this is the best opportunity I'll ever have to be on a fully funded research ship and I can study the ocean. And there are some people too who are like, no, we're gonna find mermaids. We're gonna go do this. We're gonna figure out everything. And you know, we're on the ship when they find mermaids, and they are killers. They are brutal killers who want to take people like underground to eat them. And this is creepy as shit. This was such a fantastic, creepy, scary, like just captivating book about the horrors of the sea. Another thing, like, kind of make you think of how kind of creepy it is that how much of the sea we don't actually know, and like it's like, oh, maybe there are mermaids out there. But this was amazing. I was thoroughly addicted to this entire thing and just like captivated every moment. So good. Then I have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, and I've only read the first book so far in it, but so good. So good. I like did walk out of this one and was like, okay, this is probably one of my all-time new favorite fantasy books. So we're following this peasant girl, Rin. She is a basically ward of a family. She's a war orphan, and she decides to enter these like empire-wide tests to try and get admitted to a university, well, like a school university type of thing. There is one school that is free for people to attend, and it is the most elite of the elite. It is where the rich like officers, the like basically the most exclusive generals end up coming from, and it is for like the top like 1% of the 1% of attendees. So she decides to like, she's like, I will never be able to afford to pay for a school. If I don't get into one of these schools, I'm going to be sold off to some old rich man just to be his bride, and I don't want that life. So she decides to like basically like drive herself insane, like spending all of her time studying to get into the school, and she does. And she is brought to this Imperial Academy and basically seen as like the charity case. She's like, you are the one poor person we bring in just to kind of make it look like it's fair to other people. And she is very much like trying to prove her place at the school, trying to find a way to like fit in, trying to prove that she does deserve to be there. And at the same time, realizing that she excels in a certain area of study that was thought to be extinct, thought to be like mythical, thought to be something that doesn't exist. And she excels in this one area of study and very quickly becomes very important to the war that is going on, or the war that is on the verge of happening, and very quickly becomes I don't know how to say, incredibly morally gray while fighting, incredibly vicious, incredibly crazy, but it's fantastic. We're following like the most morally gray character ever, and the terrible decisions that she's making, and the absolute brutality of war that is going on. And it was just a really fantastic first installation in a book. It has made me so excited to get to the rest of the series, and I'm like, just R.F. Kuang could do no wrong at this point. Okay, next we have our one nonfiction. Also, these are no order, by the way. These are just kind of how I wrote them down. But next we have our one nonfiction, which is Alien Earths. And this is kind of a random one, but we are really exploring the concept of why, if the universe is so vast, if there is so many potential planets out there, if there's all of this stuff, why have we never encountered alien kind? If we think of that probability of like how many worlds there are, you would think that there's aliens. And this is really just going into the like the math and the science behind like why or why not we may have encountered aliens. And like really, when you think about it, like every single thing that had to go right on Earth for us to be able to create life and for life to flourish and evolve into where it is today. And also when you look at it, like the distances between the certain planets, and realistically, like if we were to travel to certain places, if we were to see them in a telescope, like all of these things that can add to barriers to us potentially finding alien life. And this one's kind of like, it's kind of a little random one that I really loved it. I am very much a science nerd. I'm very much a biology nerd especially. And I just really loved exploring these concepts, exploring this idea. And yeah, this is not one for everyone, but it was very much for me. So after that, I have The Wisdom of Crowns by Joe Abercrombie. So this is the third book in the Age of Madness trilogy, and his last book in the First Law world. So in this world, there is the First Law trilogy, series of like 4 standalones, and then the Age of Madness trilogy. And this one's basically following the children of the first book, or the first trilogy. And this book cemented it as, this is one of my all-time favorite series now, especially The Age of Madness. This is probably in one of my top 10 fantasy series of all time. Like, I really can't even explain. Like, this one's gonna be hard to kind of talk about because it is book 3 in a trilogy, but also book 10 in a world, where it just really delved into so many interesting things within this world. It went such an interesting way, and this entire trilogy as a whole is basically exploring like an industrial revolution in this world, and people realizing that maybe the monarchy doesn't serve them to the way it used to. Maybe them as a whole, they could do something better if peasants were given equal opportunities, if there was more representation for them, if there was some kind of government or governing council that took the peasants into account and it wasn't just all representing noble houses. And just that's a very quick summary, but this was fantastic, and just truly fantastic characters. Like, honestly, characters I think I enjoyed even more than I did in the first Law trilogy, which is hard because like Lockdown was probably one of the best characters I've ever read, and just really interesting. I would highly recommend this series. Maybe avoid the standalones because they kind of did nothing for me, but the first Law and then The Age of Madness, so good. So I think our one fantasy paranormal romance, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Let me tell you that this was like the biggest shock ever, because even though I like Ali Hazelwood, I've only given one other book of hers 5 stars. That was The Love Hypothesis, and all of her other releases have kind of missed the mark for me. So the fact that Bride came in blew me away. I read this in one sitting. I stayed up late reading it. Like, I have a very strict 9 p.m. bedtime. I think I stayed up till midnight reading this. Like, if a book does that to me, if I want to stay up late reading, I know the book has done something. So in this one, we're following Misery. She is a vampire. She is the daughter of like the vampire leader in this world, and she has been set in arranged marriage with the alpha of the Wolf Clan. And this is an arranged marriage to try and bring peace to their people, because they're always on the outs. They're always on the verge of war. They're always on the verge of some kind of battle. So their leaders are hoping that if they get married, it'll bring some kind of peace treaty to their people. She does not want to go along with it, but recently her best friend has gone missing, and when she's going through her notes, she finds basically like a calendar appointment that says she's meeting with somebody who has the exact same name as our alpha. So I'm going to assume it's him. And she fully agrees to this marriage entirely so that she can investigate him and figure out if he knows anything about her friend's disappearance. And something about this just led to such a perfect dynamic. The dynamic between our two main characters, the dynamic between the worlds, and her trying to find a place within this world, him not trusting her not trusting him, but trying to find a way to like get answers, and like also slowly like not trusting the wolves, but kind of finding her family within them. And like just all of that added up so fantastically well. I'm also, like, I have to say, a huge sucker for shifter romances. So that, just to begin with, had a very strong selling point for me. And if you're not a big shifter person, like, it might not do it quite for as well. But that just, like, it had so many things that added up for me. And yeah, I was addicted. I love this one. This is a fantastic paranormal romance. Blood Over Bridehaven by Emma Wing. Yo, this one's so underrated. It has fantastic ratings, but not enough people have read this. So we're following, it's kind of like a dark academia, I'll say that. But this has one of the most explosive, like, first chapters that I've ever read in a book. We're basically just following this group of people who are running through, like, desperately across the land and getting attacked by, like, these magical, like, desolation type things, just like getting attacked and like their whole body is coming apart. And it's like they're not even getting physically attacked by like a being, it's just things pop up and destroy them. But the world itself, like the real part of the story, is we're following a female scholar, and she is a mage, and in this world it is very, I'm not gonna say sexist, but very like male dominated. And to date, there has never been a female who's been accepted into, it's kind of like their government, it's like the governing council of mages. There's never been a female accepted. They admit one every 10 years for testing to be accepted into it, but they always make the tests in a way that there's like no hope of someone passing. So we are following somebody who is going through this testing, and the mages make it as insanely, ridiculously difficult that they can. They make every single thing you can imagine to make so she wouldn't pass, but she does. And she thinks that this is like, you know, she's made it into this council, she should be good. She quickly realizes that even though she's made it, she's never going to be accepted. They're always going to like treat her as an outsider. And because of this, she kind of like, you know, she's just kind of on her own. So she's doing research. She's trying to solve the city's like energy problem, and she's unable to recruit enough an assistant. So she brings in this guy who was previously a custodian. He comes to our defense one time. She brings him in, and he is from a race of people who are basically considered like, they're not even second-class citizens. They are like less than less. They are not people in the eyes of this government. They're other, and they're not considered like, they're basically considered animals. Like, they are treated so terribly. And she has never realized this because she's never had, like, it's never been brought to her attention to actually think about these people, think about their problems, to think about them. And she quickly realizes the like imbalance that there is in this world. And together, because she kind of has this new perspective and this new research assistant who's showing her all of these new things, she quickly comes to discover a secret that the council has been holding. And it like completely revolutionized her world, and she has to decide like what to do with it. And that's kind of how I'm gonna keep the synopsis, but it's so good. It is incredibly interesting. It was just very, very thrilling and exciting and unpredictable. Then we're close. We only have 3 more friends. So Natural Beauty. This is a horror, but it was a really weird horror. Like, it's kind of hard to explain this one as well, but we're basically following a woman who is recruited into this like beauty, it's this natural beauty company, and she's been recruited to be like one of the saleswomen for it. And you are following her as she very quickly, like, she's making the descent from kind of a, okay, whatever, this is a job, to very quickly like becoming 100% entrenched in the messaging that this world is selling and becoming like 100% in on it. She's very like 100% listening to all of the things that this company is peddling, you know. And part of it too is, so as her position as a saleswoman, she has to be very comfortable and knowledgeable about their products. So they make all these natural products that are like weird things like silkworm. All I'm thinking is like silk from a worm. I know that's literally just silk, but like some weird animal byproducts, excretions, that kind of thing. Like, they use those as a skincare ingredient. And she tests these. And there's just like this weird messaging. Like, the more she uses the products, the more she gets fully entrenched in this world, and the more she is like changing physically, perhaps. And it's just a really, really interesting study of her like mindset as she's going through all of these changes and seeing how people react around her and seeing what is happening. And we're gonna leave it at that. But this was fantastic. It was weird, like very weird horror. And that's kind of how I like it the best. So next we have The Will of the Many by James Islandon, and this is so good, so good. Please read this. This is basically like a Roman-inspired fantasy where we're following an orphan who is adopted by this like person in a position of power, and he's basically brought in to be sent to this school and kind of be like this person's like representative in the school, but also kind of a spy. And we're just following like this really, really interesting society where people have will. So it's like they're kind of their magic ability, and I feel like I'm into so bad at this, but there's basically like a hierarchical like pyramid structure of people on the bottom have to submit their will, and the further up you get, the more people are able to use it. So if you're very high up in society, you have access to all of the people's below you will, and you're basically able to do this, like to use it to do whatever. Like, it's how the society runs. They like operate their trains with it. They operate like everything that happens in society is using the will. And we're following our main character as he's at this school training to learn how to use this, also how to become like a person of authority within this world. So this school is like the elite for military or government or whatever. People, like everybody trains here and then goes off to a very interesting life. And we're following his journey at school and all of these mysteries that he's there to kind of unravel. So he's been sent there with a mission. He's been sent there to try and figure stuff out. And it's just a very, very interesting. The last 100 pages are some of the most like shocking that I think I've read. Like, it really veered off in such an incredible way that I was not expecting. And yeah, I'm not going to say more, but this one was great. And then our final book we're going to talk about is We Spread by Ian Reid. And this was, again, kind of horror, actually very horror, but we're following the story of an older woman who has dementia. And the first half of this book is one of the saddest things I've ever read, where we're following her story as she slowly like deteriorates and she's slowly losing like her joy of life. All the things that had previously brought her joy are no longer fulfilling her. She's not able to she's not able to read because she can't grasp the story in her mind. She's not eating, like she used to host elaborate dinner parties. Now she just has like very small meals by herself. She's like just not really living life in the same way she used to, and she's very aware of that. And she reaches a certain point where she is brought to a home, and it is told to her that she and her partner had arranged this when he was still alive, so that if she reaches a certain point, she'll go here and she'll be able to live out her life that way. But she doesn't remember this, so she thinks that she's being abducted. And then when she's in this home, things just start going weird. Like she's being told all of these things happened that she didn't experience. She's being told, or she's hearing things and then being told nothing happened. Things are like, just things are going weird. And she thinks there's a conspiracy. She thinks that something's happening. And the story is so insanely good, but also like really, really scary because she doesn't actually know if like this is happening or if she's just imagining it. She doesn't know what's reality, what's going on. Like we don't know if this is a horror or if it's actually just her like not able to understand what's going on. It was horrifying. It was really, really good, but it was really, really sad as well. So on that note, those are my top 10 so far of 2024. So it'll be really interesting to see for the final part of the year, like what potentially could beat these out, like what other books I might enjoy more, what other ones are going to be, I don't know, better. Like, because I'm really hoping I find a lot more books that will, you know, potentially beat these out, because why not? Like, let's always hope for better books. Let's always hope that we're finding so many 5 stars. Yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and hopefully I will see you in one soon. Bye.